The Pyramid at the End of the World. Quite a long title, that, isn't it? Yeah, this is the second part of this loose trilogy, which features the monks. And here, the monks have appeared again on Earth. Last time, in Extremis, we see that they created this virtual world and they want to see how they could invade the Earth, and it was a great idea what they came up with there. The Doctor is still blind in this episode, and it's by the end of this, Bill finally finds out that he's been blind ever since the events that took place in Oxygen. And yeah, the whole idea of it is UN, they are the ones who are doing all the summoning. Last time it was people from the Vatican, all those priests and the Pope. And here it's the UN, and they summon the Doctor, and he has a title of President of the World. So they're using a reference there from the end of Series 8, Dark Water, Death in Heaven, because he was President of the World in that, or some shite. I can't really recall that much, because Death in Heaven was an episode which was quite a little bit of a letdown. Dark Water I quite like though. And here they discover this pyramid that's not been there the whole time, it's all just appeared, and the monks are there, that's where they reside. And we learn a lot more about what these monks are all about, why are they on Earth, and why do they want to invade it and things like that. And we learn about their culture, so they've actually got their own culture. The monks I can see being a villain that may pop up again at some point in the future of Doctor Who. I certainly don't think that we'll see the last of them after this series has taken place. Maybe we might see them again in future series, who knows. And if not, then definitely Big Finish, they'll definitely take the rights and make some stories featuring the monks. I think that they've got a lot of material there that they could use, that they could write for future stories, and maybe for past Doctors. It's just a suggestion, and it's just something that could happen. If it does happen, then you saw it here first. The BBC, they've watched this video. So yeah, I really like the whole thing with the monks and everything, and you know those machines what they use, like with all the wiring, it's all glowy and everything. It's probably like really cheap stuff that they use, but it works very well. It looks very alien, let's say. And you know, the whole world is in danger. You know, nuclear explosions, things like that. There's a lot of things that are dealt with in this episode, and it's kind of like a whole terrorism thing. The episode, this episode is written by Peter Harness, I believe, and he wrote Kill the Moon and the Zygon two-parter from Series 9. It's kind of had a bit can't get my words out. He's kind of had a bit of a mixed bag in stories, this writer, because Kill the Moon was a story, upon reflection, I still do not like. I don't believe I really liked it first time around when it came out. You know, the whole moon is an egg thing. It's absolute bollocks. And the Zygon two-parter I quite like, although it's kind of heavy with the whole ISIS thing. Like, we know about that. You don't really need to delve into that because it's Doctor Who. So, in this, I think that he does well with this story. I feel like Pyramid at the End of the World, he gets it kind of right. Moffat co-wrote this as well, so I think Moffat had a huge hand to play with this episode as well. Kind of like what he did with the second part of the Zygon two-parter, because he actually co-wrote that, and he might have been the one who actually wrote the bit when the Doctor says that amazing speech, which is, so relevant in today's events. If you've been watching all the events that have been unfolded, you know, over the last few weeks, there couldn't be a time that is much more relevant than right now. It's unbelievable. And even back then, because I remember back then when the episode aired, some events happened in Paris, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's very much so, and you get little hints of that in this story as well, with the whole threat of nuclear weapons. I feel that the ending of this episode, I really quite like it. I quite like the ending of the episode because it not only ends on a cliffhanger, we also see the Doctor get his sight back as well. So he gets his sight back, but at the same time it means that the monks are invading the Earth. The previous episode, Extremis, if there's one criticism I had for that episode, it was that ending of that episode. It just ended suddenly. But the episode was absolutely brilliant. I don't think that this episode, however, is as good as Extremis. I don't think that it had the same impact, because by this point we already know who the monks are. We get an idea of what they're all about, and there's just quite a little bit of padding here and there, and there's some points where I feel, they couldn't have done with that, and they could have done some of the things, like the supporting characters are not exactly the best supporting characters in the world, let's be completely honest with you here. Plus this could have been a good opportunity to use Unit here, but it seems that the writers have really tried their best to resist using Unit, so instead they've just used the UN, and they're clearly just bad clones of Unit. We could have really used Unit, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we could have seen the exact same characters again. We didn't have to see Kate Stewart or Osgood, and to be honest, we don't really need to see Osgood, because the whole storyline in the last series about, is she a Zygon? Is she not a Zygon? I don't really give a shit, to be honest, if she is or isn't. But that's besides the point. If I have to rate this episode out of 10, I would rate this an 8 out of 10. I feel that this is still a very good episode. Not as good as Extremis, or Extremis, however you pronounce it, but it certainly is in my good books, and it does have the requirements of watching Extremis, so you can't go into this episode and expect to know what's going on. I think you'll have to watch Extremis before this, seeing as this was all made for 3 episodes, like a trilogy. It was all made as part of a trilogy, with this being a second one, and the next one being, of course, The Lie of the Land.